Ancient Egypt, the eternal civilization. Ancient Egypt is a land of endless fascination, a civilization that thrived for over 3,000 years, leaving behind monuments so vast and enduring that they continue to dominate the imagination of people today. But beyond the towering pyramids and elaborate tombs lies a deeper mystery, one that has perplexed historians and archaeologists for centuries. What was the singular belief, the underlying force that united a vast and diverse population through centuries of prosperity, strife, and change? What drove them to achieve unparalleled feats of engineering to create a culture so advanced that its echoes still shape the modern world? The answer isn't immediately obvious. It isn't inscribed plainly on temple walls or etched into the sarcophagi of kings. Yet it was this belief that shaped their daily lives, their governance, and even their understanding of existence itself. By the end of this journey, that secret will be revealed. And when it is, you will see ancient Egypt not just as a civilization of the past, but as a mirror reflecting the essence of what it means to be human. Before the first stone of the pyramid was laid, or the first hieroglyph was carved, the story of ancient Egypt began with the Nile River. Stretching over 4,000 miles from the highlands of East Africa to the Mediterranean Sea, the Nile was far more than a geographical feature. It was a lifeline. In a land dominated by the unforgiving Sahara Desert, the annual flooding of the Nile brought fertile soil to the riverbanks, transforming barren land into lush fields capable of supporting life. This natural bounty didn't just sustain the earliest inhabitants, it shaped their worldview. The Nile was a provider, a force of stability in an otherwise chaotic environment. Over 7,000 years ago, nomadic tribes began settling along its banks, abandoning their wandering ways to embrace a new lifestyle based on agriculture. These early farmers cultivated barley and emmer wheat, raised cattle, and developed rudimentary irrigation systems to manage the floodwaters. They formed small villages which over time grew into thriving communities. Yet these were not isolated settlements. Trade began to flourish as people exchanged goods such as pottery tools and exotic materials like turquoise and lapis lazuli, creating networks that connected distant regions. As these communities expanded, so did their need for organization. The complexities of managing irrigation, dividing land, and resolving disputes led to the rise of local leaders. Eventually, these leaders gained enough power to form city-states, each with its own customs and traditions. By 3500 BCE, two distinct regions had emerged. Upper Egypt in the south, and now River Valley, and Lower Egypt in the north, defined its sprawling delta. Despite their differences, both regions relied on the Nile, and their shared dependence on this vital resource laid the groundwork for unity. Around 3100 BCE, a remarkable leader named Narmer rose to power. Known as the unifier of Egypt, Narmer achieved what no one before him could. He brought together Upper and Lower Egypt under a single rule, establishing the first centralized nation-state in human history. His reign marked the beginning of the early dynastic period, a time of profound transformation. Narmer's leadership wasn't just political, it was symbolic. He adopted the double crown, combining the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt, a visual representation of unity that would endure for millennia. With this unification, the identity of Egypt as a cohesive civilization was born. The Old Kingdom, spanning from around 2700 to 2200 BCE, is often referred to as the Age of the Pyramids. During this time, Egypt achieved unparalleled advancements in architecture, governance, and cultural development. At its heart was the concept of divine kingship, the belief that the pharaoh was not just a ruler, but a living god who acted as an intermediary between the people and the deities. This belief was the cornerstone of Egyptian society, inspiring loyalty and legitimizing the pharaoh's authority. The pyramids, Egypt's most iconic monuments, were constructed during this era as elaborate tombs for the pharaohs. These structures were not merely burial sites, they were grand expressions of the Egyptian belief in the afterlife. The largest and most famous of these the Great Pyramid of Giza was built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BCE. Composed of over 2 million limestone blocks, each weighing several tons, the construction of the Great Pyramid remains one of history's greatest engineering feats. How such a structure was built with the tools and technology of the time continues to astonish modern engineers and architects. The construction of the pyramids required an extraordinary level of organisation and resources. Tens of thousands of workers, including skilled artisans, labourers and engineers, were mobilised to carry out these projects. Contrary to popular belief, evidence suggests that many of these workers were not slaves, but paid labourers who lived in well-organised communities near the construction sites. Their efforts reflected a shared sense of purpose, rooted in the belief that ensuring the pharaoh's safe passage to the afterlife would secure prosperity for the entire kingdom. The Old Kingdom was also a time of cultural flourishing. Art, characterised by its symmetry and adherence to strict conventions, reached new heights. Religion became more structured, with the sun god Ra rising to prominence as the supreme deity. The concept of Ma'at, representing order, balance and justice, became central to Egyptian philosophy and governance. Ma'at wasn't just a religious principle, it was a way of life influencing everything from the administration of laws to personal behaviour. However, the grandeur of the Old Kingdom could not last indefinitely. A series of weak rulers combined with economic strain and poor Nile floods led to a gradual decline. By 2200 BCE, the centralized power of the pharaohs had eroded, and Egypt entered a period of political fragmentation and chaos known as the First Intermediate Period. The First Intermediate Period, lasting from approximately 2200 to 2050 BCE, was a time of division and strife. Without a strong central authority, Egypt fractured into smaller, regional powers, each vying for control. The once unified kingdom became a patchwork of competing territories, with rival rulers in Heracleopolis and Thebes at odds. This era is often seen as a time of decline, yet it was also a period of resilience and adaptation. Local leaders took on the responsibilities of governance, and cultural creativity flourished in unexpected ways. Art became more expressive, and new literary forms emerged, reflecting the struggles and aspirations of ordinary people. It was Thebes that ultimately rose to prominence thanks to the efforts of a determined ruler named Mentuhotep II. Around 2050 BCE, Mentuhotep succeeded in reuniting Egypt, marking the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. This period, lasting until around 1650 BCE, is often called Egypt's Classical Age, a time of renewed stability, cultural flourishing, and international engagement. The Middle Kingdom rulers were seen as shepherds of their people, focusing on public works, agricultural expansion, and trade. Trade routes extended deep into Nubia, the Levant, and even the mysterious land of Punt, bringing wealth and exotic goods to Egypt. This era also saw advancements in literature with works like The Tale of Sinuhe, which explored themes of exile identity and the meaning of home. Innovations in irrigation and architecture further solidified Egypt's strength, setting the stage for its most glorious age. Continuing from where we left off, the Middle Kingdom's stability eventually began to erode as internal strife and external pressures mounted. By around 1650 BCE, Egypt entered a period of vulnerability, now known as the Second Intermediate Period. This era saw the incursion of the Hyksos, a group of Asiatic people who took control of northern Egypt, establishing their capital at Avaris. The Hyksos introduced important innovations to Egypt, including the horse-drawn chariot and advanced bronze weaponry. Though their presence was a blow to Egyptian pride, the Hyksos' technological contributions would later play a crucial role in Egypt's resurgence. In the south, Theban rulers were determined to expel the Hyksos and reclaim Egypt's sovereignty. Kamosi, one of these southern leaders, launched campaigns to weaken the Hyksos, but it was his successor, Amaze who achieved ultimate victory. Around 1550 BCE, Amaze drove the Hyksos out of Egypt, reunifying the kingdom and ushering in the New Kingdom, Egypt's most powerful and expansive era. The New Kingdom, lasting from around 1550 to 1070 BCE, is often referred to as Egypt's Golden Age. during this period into a formidable empire, extending its influence far beyond its borders. Pharaohs, such as Thutmose III, known as the Napoleon of Egypt, led military campaigns into Nubia, the Levant, and as far as modern-day Syria, solidifying Egypt's dominance. Conquered territories paid tribute in gold, livestock, and exotic goods, enriching the Egyptian state and fueling its architectural and artistic ambitions. One of the most remarkable figures of the New Kingdom was Hatshepsut, a woman who defied convention to rule as pharaoh. Ascending to power around 1479 BCE, Hatshepsut portrayed herself in masculine imagery, wearing the false beard traditionally associated with male rulers. Her reign was marked by peace and prosperity. She commissioned ambitious building projects, including her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, and reopened trade routes with the land of Punt, bringing wealth and exotic goods to Egypt. Despite her accomplishments, later rulers, including her stepson Thutmose III, attempted to erase her memory by defacing monuments bearing her name. However, her legacy endures as one of Egypt's most extraordinary leaders. The New Kingdom also saw a period of religious upheaval under the reign of Amenhotep IV, who later renamed himself Akhenaten. Rejecting the traditional polytheistic beliefs of Egypt, Akhenaten introduced monotheism, elevating Aten, the sun disk, as the sole god. He moved the capital to Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna, and oversaw a radical transformation of Egyptian art and culture. The Amarna period, as it is known, produced more naturalistic art and a departure from the rigid conventions of earlier periods. However, Akhenaten's reforms were deeply unpopular and largely reversed after his death. His successor, the young Tutankhamun, restored the traditional pantheon and moved the capital back to Thebes. While Tutankhamun's reign was short, his nearly intact tomb discovered in 1922 reignited global fascination with ancient Egypt. The New Kingdom's decline began in the later years of the 20th dynasty. Internal corruption, economic difficulties, and increasing pressure from external powers such as the Sea Peoples weakened Egypt's control over its empire. By 1070 BCE, Egypt had entered the Third Intermediate Period, a time of political fragmentation and diminished power. The once mighty pharaohs were reduced to rulers of regional territories, while foreign powers, including the Libyans and Nubians, exerted control over parts of Egypt. Despite these challenges, Egypt retained its cultural identity. Even during periods of foreign rule, Egyptian traditions, art, and religious practices persisted. This resilience was evident when the Assyrians invaded in the 7th century BCE, followed by the Persians in the 6th century BCE. Each conquering power adopted elements of Egyptian culture, ensuring its survival, even as political control shifted. In 332 BCE, Egypt faced another monumental transition with the arrival of Alexander the Great. After his conquest, Egypt became part of the Hellenistic world. Alexander's general Ptolemy Stasanabri established the Ptolemaic dynasty, blending Greek and Egyptian traditions. Under the Ptolemies, Alexandria became a center of learning and culture, home to the legendary Library of Alexandria and the Pharaohs Lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, Cleopatra VII, is one of history's most famous figures. Intelligent, charismatic, and politically astute Cleopatra sought to maintain Egypt's independence by allying with powerful Roman leaders, including Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her efforts ultimately failed, and after her death in 30 BCE, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. With Cleopatra's demise, the age of the pharaohs came to an end, but the legacy of ancient Egypt endured. Even as Egypt fell under Roman rule, its influence remained profound. The art, architecture, and scientific achievements of ancient Egypt continued to inspire civilizations across the Mediterranean and beyond. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, allowed scholars to decipher hieroglyphs, unlocking the secrets of this ancient civilization. Today, the achievements of ancient Egypt remain awe-inspiring, from its monumental pyramids and temples to its advancements in medicine, mathematics, and engineering. At the heart of all these accomplishments was a single unifying belief: the promise of the afterlife into a life. The Egyptians viewed death not as an end, but as a transition to another existence. This belief shaped their architecture, their rituals, and their daily lives, driving them to create structures that would stand for eternity. It was this idea, that life could transcend mortality, that united a civilization and propelled it to achieve greatness. As we look back on ancient Egypt, we see not just a civilization of the past, but a reflection of humanity's enduring quest for meaning, immortality, and connection to the divine. The sands of time may have buried their monuments, but their story lives on, whispering to us across millennia.